Hi, I'm Megan and welcome to my kitchen. Today's video is a collab with Mel over at In the Kitchen with Mama Mel. I really enjoy watching her videos and I know that you'll love them as well. She does grocery hauls, what's for dinner videos, recipes, and more. I'll link Mel's channel in the description box below. As soon as you're done watching my video, head on over to her channel, show her some love, and subscribe to her if you're not already. If you're coming to my channel from Mel's, welcome. I do weekly what's for dinner videos, weekly grocery hauls, and more. I hope you enjoy this video and that you'll consider subscribing to my channel. If you're a returning viewer or subscriber, thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate your support. In today's What's for Dinner video, I'll be sharing with you what meals we had this past week, so if you'd like to get some weeknight meal ideas for your family, then just keep watching. For dinner this first night, I just made some quick burgers. My husband had been wanting a burger, so I took some ground beef, formed them into patties, seasoned them with some seasoned salt and pepper, and then I just cooked them in a skillet over the stove. I added slices of American cheese, and then we added our toppings and condiments of choice, and then I made some crinkle cut fries in the air fryer, and that was dinner this night. For dinner the next night, I tried to make fried chicken. I say tried because it was a fail. I wanted to make sure to include it anyway, though, to show you that, with things that YouTubers make, they don't always turn out. Just like at home, when you cook and maybe things don't turn out well, things get burnt, YouTubers have the exact same problem. I'd been wanting to try to make fried chicken at home for the past few years, and I just hadn't done it because, one, I hate deep frying foods. It gets everywhere. It stinks. And I just don't like it. But aside from that, I just haven't mastered it. I have a lot of trouble regulating the heat. I find my grease is either too hot, too cold. So I just have a lot of trouble with it. But I decided to try it. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and read through a lot of recipes. I tried it. It didn't turn out well. But let me show you what I did. I did think of a few things, afterwards looking back that I can do next time. So I'm going to try it again with a few tweaks. Hopefully it turns out better. And, if you try something in the kitchen and it fails, that's totally fine. Just keep trying. You'll eventually master it. To get started, I'm going to soak my chicken. Now, I knew that I wanted to soak it in buttermilk because that's how my grandmother did it, and that's how, everyone growing up that I know of soaked their chicken in buttermilk. I know some recipes call to do like an egg wash, but we've always done buttermilk, so I knew I wanted to do that, but several of the recipes that I saw said to season the chicken before you put the buttermilk on it. So that's what I did here. I added some onion powder, garlic powder, Badia Complete, salt, pepper, cayenne pepper, some Tony's, and then I believe I also did some poultry seasoning, yeah. And then after I seasoned both sides of my chicken, I just covered it in buttermilk, placed a lid on it, and then placed this into the refrigerator overnight. Now, I can say next time I do the fried chicken, I won't bother seasoning it like I did. I'm just going to maybe add a little bit of salt and buttermilk, and that's it. I feel like in the final fried chicken, you could not taste the seasonings that I added, so it was just kind of a waste of a step. I would just make sure next time that I season my flour really well, and then that's it. Now, if anything, you could brine your chicken to get the salt and seasoning into the chicken, but otherwise, I would just season the flour really well. Next, I'm going to get started on the flour portion of the dredge. So in this bowl, I'm going to add some self-rising flour, cornstarch, salt, pepper, paprika, and garlic powder. And like I said, I did not season the flour as much as I wish I would have. So again, next time I'll definitely make sure to season this more heavily. Now I'm going to add those seasonings and then stir that together. And then that's what I'll use to dip my chicken in. A lot of our grandmothers and great-grandmothers more than likely use paper bags to do this, and you can totally do it. It's a really great way to make sure that your chicken gets really nice and coated, and it doesn't make a huge mess. You just add your flour to a paper bag and then add the chicken and shake it up really well. Now I'm going to take the chicken that has been sitting in the buttermilk overnight. I'm going to just kind of try to get as much of that extra buttermilk off as possible, and then I'm going to dip that into the flour mixture and pat that on the chicken really well, and then I'm going to move my chicken to a platter. Now today I'm using chicken thighs and drumsticks. I prefer dark meat, but you can use whatever cuts of chicken you prefer, and I did allow the chicken to sit for about 10 minutes just so that the flour kind of adhered to the chicken a little bit better. Now I'm ready to fry my chicken. A lot of the recipes that I read said to cook the chicken at 350, but some recipes said to cook it as low as 325, some said 375, so I just went with the middle at 350. And you want to cook the chicken until it's at least 165 degrees internal temperature. For the chicken thighs and drumsticks, the recipes I read said about 12 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to cook my chicken on one side for about 6 minutes, flip it over, cook it for the other, 6 or 7 minutes, and once it's cooked all the way through, I'm going to set it aside on a wire rack and allow it to cool slightly. To go along with the chicken, I'm trying a new recipe for a Copycat Stauffer's macaroni and cheese. I saw this on Jess and the Boys channel. I'll link that video in the description box below. To be honest, I was kind of hesitant about not necessarily the ingredients, but just how you put them together. But this turned out really well. We would definitely make this again. So I've cooked up some elbow macaroni noodles. I've drained them. I've set them aside. Next, in this pot, I'm going to add in my butter and allow that to melt. Next, I'm going to add in the cheddar cheese soup, salt, pepper, and dry mustard powder and whisk that in. I'm going to cook that for about a minute. And again, if you want the measurements for this, I'll have Jess's video in the description box below. Next, I'm going to add in my shredded cheddar cheese and again, whisk that in and cook that for about a minute until the cheese is nice and melted. Now I'm going to add in my sour cream. Next, I'm going to add in the milk, give it a whisk, and allow it to cook for about another minute. And just a quick note here, when you add the cheddar cheese soup and even the shredded cheese, it might look a little like stringy or separated to you, but just keep going. It will turn out just fine, I promise. So once that's done, I'm going to add in my cooked elbow macaroni noodles, give that a stir, and that's it. And like I said, this macaroni and cheese was really good. It was nice and creamy. We really enjoyed this. I'd recommend you give this a try. And here's the finished macaroni and cheese. We had some leftover mashed potatoes in the fridge that I wanted to use up, so I just warmed those in a small sauce pot over the stove on low. Then I made some green beans. I've shared this before on my channel. My husband and I are not big green bean fans at all, but several months ago, we tried Mandy and the Makings recipe, and we love them now. They're so good. I've made them several times. I'll have her video linked in the description box below. And then to go along with it, I made some biscuits. I already had the shortening and buttermilk out for the chicken, so I just figured that I'd make some biscuits really quick. I have a separate video on that. I'll link that in the description box below. And then here is the fried chicken. Like I said, it might be deceiving and it might look golden brown and crispy, but it just did not turn out. So here are the finished plates. We have the macaroni and cheese, the mashed potatoes, the green beans, the biscuits, and then the fried chicken. And like I said, with the fried chicken, really, I think what happened is my oil was too hot and the chicken, the flour tasted burnt, so it got way too brown on the outside before it was cooked on the inside. I don't know what happened. I did use a thermometer. I did check the temperature of the oil many times, and it seemed fine, so I don't know if my thermometer is on the fritz or what, but that's why it didn't turn out. But like I said, I'm going to make a few tweaks and try this again, and hopefully it will turn out. But that was dinner this night. For dinner the next night, I made a chili cheese dog bake. I got this recipe from Tamara over at Southern Wife Everyday Life. I'll have her video linked in the description box below. This is such an easy dinner to put together and it's super budget friendly, so I recommend that you give this a try. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And in this bowl, I'm going to add a can of chili with beans and then a can of hot dog chili sauce and stir that together until it's combined. Now, for this recipe, use whatever chili you prefer. If you don't like beans in your chili, just use, the hot dog chili or whatever chili you do like. This would also be a great way to use up leftover chili. Once I have that mixed, I'm going to grease a casserole dish. I'm going to add a little less than half of the hot dog chili to the bottom of the casserole dish. Next, I'm going to take some crescent rolls and hot dogs, and I'm just going to wrap each of the hot dogs in the crescent roll. You're basically just making pigs in a blanket. So once I've done that, I'm going to add the crescent wrapped hot dogs into the casserole dish on top of the chili. And then I like to cover that with the remaining chili, cover it with foil, and place it into the oven. Now, I cook it for about 45 minutes for the crescent rolls to cook all the way through. That's just how we like it. But a way that you can do this that's faster is you just lay down your bottom layer of chili. You add the crescent wrapped hot dogs. Don't add the rest of the chili. Place that into the oven for about maybe 20-25 minutes until the crescent rolls are done. But like I said, we really like it nice and kind of gooey, so I like to add the chili on top. So after about 45 minutes, I removed this from the oven, sprinkled it with some shredded cheddar cheese, and put it back into the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes or until the cheese was nice and melted. So here's the finished chili cheese dog bake, and then to go along with it, I just warmed up some of the leftover Copycat Stauffer's mac and cheese from the night before, and then here is the finished plate. It's not very pretty to look at, I know, and it's not gourmet, it's not, organic, made from scratch, but like I said, it's a really easy dinner, it's super budget friendly, and it's pretty darn tasty. So, if you like chili cheese dogs, I recommend you give this a try. For dinner the next night, I made one dish chicken dinner. I've made this for years. I'll have the recipe in the description box below. This is so easy and it's delicious. I've made this several times to take as meals to people who they've had a baby or, maybe they've had surgery or something like that. And everyone has loved it and it's so easy. So let me show you how I make it. I've got my oven preheated to 350 degrees. Yes, I'm using a disposable foil pan. Yes, I know that they're not good for the environment, but we had a crazy busy day this day. I had a butt ton of dishes in the sink and a foil pan just made it easy. So I've got some chicken breasts. Just use as many chicken breasts as what you need for your family or whomever you're feeding. These chicken breasts were huge and we actually ended up cutting them in half. I'm going to season them with some salt and pepper on both sides. Next, I'm going to take some baby red potatoes, add those to the casserole dish. Now, in hindsight, I should have cut these in half, but I wasn't thinking. They weren't as tender as what I prefer. I mean, they were fine, but I would just cut the potatoes in half. Then I'm going to add some green beans. Now, if you don't like green beans, I'm sure you could use asparagus in this, or Brussels sprouts or zucchini would also probably be good. Then I'm going to sprinkle the green beans and the potatoes with a little more salt and pepper. And then this is kind of the secret ingredient, if you will. You just need a packet of Italian dressing mix. You're going to sprinkle that dressing mix all over the chicken, potatoes, and green beans. I like to toss them around a little bit. And then you're going to add some butter. The recipe calls for a full stick. I normally use anywhere between a half a stick and 2/3 of a stick, and it's more than enough. But you just want to break up the butter into pieces, add it over the chicken and vegetables, cover this with foil, and you want to cook this for about 45 minutes to an hour or until the chicken is cooked until it's 165 degrees internal temperature. Here's the finished dish, and next I'll show you our plates. Here's our plates. We did dip our potatoes in some ketchup and we dipped our chicken in homemade honey mustard. After I got a picture of our plates, we decided that was quite a bit of chicken, so we ended up just taking one chicken breast and cutting it in half. Like I said, this was super simple but really delicious and flavorful. That chicken was very tender and juicy. I recommend that you all give this a try. For dinner the next night, I made BLTs. Now, I've shared this before on my channel, but just in case you're new or you missed that, I'll share with you how I made these. So I like to cook my bacon in the oven. It's just less mess. You don't have to worry about hot grease popping everywhere. I lay my bacon out on a sheet pan. I pop it into the oven and cook it for about 12 to 15 minutes. Just depends on how crispy you like your bacon. And then I drain it on paper towels. My husband likes his bread toasted. I do not. So I added some mayonnaise. And then my little kind of secret for BLTs is I like to add just a little bit of barbecue sauce to the mayonnaise and spread that around. I don't add a whole lot, but it just kind of gives it a tiny little bit of sweetness and smokiness, and we really enjoy it. So we have our lettuce, tomatoes. I seasoned the tomatoes with a little salt and pepper, and then we just had some chips, and that was dinner this night. The last two dinners in this week's video were both dinners out, which is kind of unusual for us. Unless we're on vacation out of town, we normally don't eat out more than once a week. When we're home, we usually eat out for dinner maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks, so not very often. So like I said, this is a little bit unusual for us. For dinner this first night, we went to a restaurant outside of Nashville that we've been wanting to go to for a while. My husband got some raw oysters on the half shell. I don't prefer raw oysters at all. I can't do the texture, but I do like grilled or fried oysters. He really enjoyed these. And then we tried a dip that we hadn't tried before. This was shrimp, crawfish, and crab. It was really delicious. And then I got the same thing that I always get, which is their catfish pontchartrain and cheese grits. It's so delicious. It's so good. And then my husband got their steam pot. So he had shrimp, mussels, oysters, and crab legs, and that was our dinner this night. We were stuffed, but it was delicious. It was so good. For the last dinner in this week's video, we were out of town visiting my grandfather, so we went to a local steakhouse. I had their sirloin and ribs and loaded mashed potatoes. This was so much food. I only ate one of the ribs and about half the steak. We ate the rest for leftovers. These ribs were delicious. They were so tender and juicy. And then my husband had their steak tips with sauteed onions, mushrooms, and peppers and some grilled shrimp on the side, and that was our dinner this night. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.